Ladies and gentlemen, this is why police departments should have some type of committee of non cops to review complaints. Because they have such a powerful police union, these cops damn near can do anything they want. Now, there were 2,495 complaints against NYPD. They said none of the complaints were valid. So they're letting the public know that it's counterproductive to go up to the police department and file a complaint. You're wasting your time because they're going to look at your complaint, say it's invalid, and throw it away. So this came out in the New York Times, June 26, 2019. 2,495 reports of police bias, not one was deemed valid by the NYPD. So you are literally going up there to file a complaint, and they said most of the complaints were racial slurs, ethnic slurs, and LGBTQ slurs, and they said it's all invalid. All of it. About 2,500 people have lodged formal complaints in the last 4.5 years with the New York Police Department, reporting that officers acted with bias towards them. Not a single allegation has been substantiated by the police department. So they literally are not taking any of the complaints from New Yorkers seriously. In a report issued on Wednesday, a city watchdog agency found the investigation of these complaints against police lacking and recommended changes to how the department classifies and handles bias allegations. And this just goes back to what I said before. Police departments should not be allowed to investigate themselves because the end result will always be the same. They're not going to find anything wrong. And that's exactly what we're looking at right now. Often allegations were listed as unsubstantiated and unfounded and closed according to the report by the city's Department of Investigation, which is all tied to NYPD. In some cases, officers misclassified complaints or failed to interview people involved. The report also concluded that police officials did not take bias allegations as seriously as they do other kinds of police misconduct. Establishing effective and fair processes for the investigation of bias policing allegations is a fundamental component of the police department's relationship with the public, helping to build trust and confidence. Margaret Garnett, the DOI commissioner, said in a statement, in 2014, the police department created a way for residents to report incidents of bias by officers as a separate class of complaints and started investigating them. At the time, senior commanders were wrestling with the fallout over the department's stop and frisk policy, under which thousands of mostly black and Hispanic men were searched. What a federal judge determined were questionable constitutional grounds. The intent was to give city residents a direct way to make complaints to the police about sensitive issues like race, racial profiling, or the role of prejudice in arrest decisions. In the 5 years since the program was unveiled, 2,495 complaints have poured in for the department to investigate. Yeah, and then they just blew off all of those complaints. Then what is the point in creating a department where people can come and complain, and then every time they file a complaint, you're just dismissing the whole thing. Then it's just counterproductive to even have a department if the outcome is always the same. Why even have a special department for this? But the report, Philip K. Ewer, I guess, the city inspector general for the department recommended an overhaul of how the police investigate bias complaints, including better training for officers. This is not going. Woo! They keep running to training. Training is not going to remedy what's wrong with policing in America. There is no training you can come up with that's going to make it better. Nothing. More transparency about the allegations. The department currently offers no public accounting of bias incidents or complaints. The police should also refine what is considered a bias incident, the report said. Under current department policy, the report said the use of racial and ethnic or LGBTQ based slurs is not considered evidence of bias. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what? Cops in this country are not going to find themselves guilty in anything. All this is just some break off department that's still very much tied to the NYPD. And no matter what you file, they're going to find a reason to dismiss it. That's all. That's all this department. That's the only reason why this department exists, is to shut down anything the citizens bring against a cop. Allegations of police bias are investigated by the department's Internal Affairs Bureau, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, an independent agency that also investigate reports of police misconduct, also refers complaints about biased policing to the Internal Affairs Bureau. The Inspector General reviewed 888 incidents, investigated by Internal Affairs, and found 68% accused the officer of racial bias. In several incidents, the report said investigating officers failed to pursue the case properly or filed it correctly, which hindered the case from being handled appropriately. That is bullshit, y'all. That is bullshit. Okay? It's bullshit because, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter if a person did not know how to properly file something. They know how it's done. And if they're not going to assist the public, then again, why do you have this department? Why? The public don't work for the NYPD. They don't work for your internal affairs. So you're going to have to instruct them on how to do things. And if you fail to instruct them, then no, that shouldn't be grounds of you throwing anything out because you feel like it wasn't handled right. Those are just fallacies so that they can get out of having anything on them. Often, the report said officers cited guilty pleas or convictions as evidence that the bias claim were unfounded and simply closed the case. Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they came up with all kinds of ways to get out of this. Well, I arrested them, so, you can't take nothing they said seriously. They got arrested. No, it shouldn't go down like that. There's a lot of people in America that get arrested and they didn't commit a crime. You still have that big major problem. In one complaint, a woman reported that her husband, who is black, was targeted by officers because of his race. The officers boxed in her husband's car and said his disability placard seemed invalid because he looked fine. What? What? disability place card seemed invalid because he looked fine. Well, when did the NYPD become doctors? So you mean to tell me you're looking at people and trying to diagnose them? You don't know what's wrong with a person. The woman said officers then cited her husband for littering after they spotted a discarded cigarette on the sidewalk. The woman reported that her son was arrested and taken into the police station, where officers were heard saying, "You know what I do with gypsies. I put all gypsies in jail." Proving such claims stem from bias is difficult. No, because you made it difficult. Okay? It shouldn't be difficult to report these things, but you set up your system to intentionally make everything like this difficult to report. So, I mean, these things are disgusting, but we are talking about the NYPD, y'all. I'm not surprised at all. You know, these police departments really need to all be dismantled, and they need to start over from scratch. Now, if you remember, when people complained about the NYPD, they said they were going to stop patrolling their neighborhoods. Oh, you going to need the police. You know how they always talk that shit. You going to need the police. You going to need the police. As soon as they stopped patrolling certain areas, the crime went down. The crime went down without the NYPD patrolling. Okay, so that is evident, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why crime is high is because of these cops. And I'm glad they refused to patrol certain areas and the crime dropped without them patrolling it. That says it all. Your cops are the problem. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.